2, 1, cut, here we go. I gotta give you something so you know. I've competed in 7 CrossFit Games and I just ran my 4th marathon. I've talked to you guys about prepping for a CrossFit competition, but today I wanna share with you some things that can help you if you're prepping to run a race. Patrick ran his first half marathon, and this was my 4th and fastest marathon. Whether you're going from a half marathon to a full marathon, or you're running your first full marathon, or maybe your first half marathon, we're gonna give you some tips to help with preparation and also some tips for race day. First tip, know and learn your pace. Stay in your lane, essentially, just like we do during CrossFit workouts. When we get to the start line, we're gonna be nervous. We're gonna have really good adrenaline, but sometimes we can channel that adrenaline and just kind of throw everything that we've trained out the window and take off at 15 to 20 seconds faster than we should be just because that adrenaline is carrying us through. Then all of a sudden our heart rate might go up to red zone, and this is not what we've trained for. So when you're out on your training runs, making sure that you're learning your body, you're learning how to breathe, you're learning the pace that feels comfortable, that you know you can run your best 13 miles or maybe your 26.2. Not saying you have to stick to that pace the entire time, but definitely for the bulk of the race, knowing and learning your pace so you can be right there the whole time is gonna allow you to feel good. If you start to feel fresh or like you have something left in the tank, you can slowly start to increase that pace towards the end of the race to maybe cut off a few extra seconds, but it's gonna be much more beneficial to stick to that pace than to go out way too hot and then shoot yourself in the foot from the start. You will be tapered and you should feel good on race day. The most important thing, don't let that bait you in to a pace that you should not be holding or something that you know you can't hold for those 26.2 miles. It's important to be strict with yourself and hold yourself accountable to stick to the pace that you practiced and you trained. Stay in your lane. Especially for your first race, I think it's super important. We kind of talk about this in CrossFit as well when it comes to CrossFit workouts. When you get within 2 miles, 1 mile, you're gonna be tired, but we want you crossing that finish line feeling like, oh, I definitely could do that again. I think I could have shaved off a few seconds, rather than like, oh my gosh, that was the most painful thing I've ever done. I'm never running another race again. We don't wanna feel that. We wanna feel confident in our ability, and we wanna learn what that was so that way we can go back to the drawing board when it goes to training and start to improve upon that pace. Next, let's talk about fuel. Fuel is as important as the training itself. There's 2 parts to the fuel. First, there's gonna be the fuel leading into the race, making sure that you have the glycogen stores built up so your body can tap into those as you start to fatigue. The second type of fuel is gonna be what you take on during the race. That's gonna be that instant source of carbohydrate that keeps you going and keeps you moving and keeps your CNS feeling fresh. If you don't start fueling until the night before, you're already in trouble and you've now shot yourself in the foot. You really wanna start building those glycogen stores at least 72 hours, which would be 3 days up to 4 days before your race. So for me, I started eating pasta every night, starting 4 days out. That way my body is storing this extra energy as I'm tapering. So when I start to get into those deficits, I already have the reserves built up so my body can tap into those and have the energy to keep moving me forward throughout the race. It may seem like the race is still far away when you have 4 days until that race, but fueling leading up is one of the most important things that we can do, because if we don't have those reserves built up, we're likely gonna bonk at some point during the race because we didn't have the energy from the start. Or maybe we have the energy the first 5 miles, but then when we're starting to tap into those reserves, they're not there because we didn't focus on fueling properly with the proper carbohydrates enough days in advance to give our body time to create the reserves so we have those glycogen stores. Hydration is just as important as creating those glycogen stores. We don't want to all of a sudden down 8 ounces of water the morning before or the morning of and think, oh, that's enough water. A lot of people cramp on race day, and a lot of times that can be due to either drinking plain water, so the water doesn't have any electrolytes in it, or not drinking enough water. If we're drinking water, we want to start that 3 days out, but we want to make sure that we have electrolytes in our water. So that's going to be magnesium, potassium, and salt. That way we can keep our body and everything balanced and have energy, not feeling like we get a little bit off from drinking too much plain water. Let's talk about fuel during the race. This is something you never want to try for the very first time on race day. So as you're running by the hydration stations, you always want to take hydration. You don't have to stop at every station, but you should be stopping at least every 3rd station. I was doing every other for a while. You want to make sure that you train and you practice whatever it is you're going to put on race day. If you've never drank Gatorade, I do not recommend taking Gatorade because it might upset your stomach. Make sure you take the water that they're offering. Typically, they're offering a Gatorade and a water option, so making sure that you just don't pass these hydration stations, but you start taking it on early on in the race before you feel like you need it. Once you get to the point that you feel like you need it, it's now too late. As far as fueling during the race, again, same thing. We want to practice. There's gels, there's goose, there's honey stingers, there's shot blocks. I could go on and on. There's a million things on the market, and some of those will not settle well with your stomach. When I ran the New York Marathon 10 years ago, I got a really bad stomach ache because I took a gel for the first time in the race at mile 14. The rest of my race was over. So this time around, you want to make sure that you practice. For me, I chose to do shot blocks because that's what I use at the CrossFit Games, and I know that they digest super simply. But making sure that you've practiced that fuel, that way you not only know it settles well, but you're confident in what you're fueling with, and that way you can have that little bit of pick-me-up as you start to feel like you might be crashing throughout the race. When racing, I focused on putting in 30 to 40 grams of carbs about every 60 minutes. So I'd check my watch, okay, I'm at an hour, I'm taking down 2 shot blocks. Okay, run, keep running. If I felt like I was crashing a little bit early, I might take them sooner, but having those on hand is super important. I carried just a little fanny pack that I turned around to the back, kept my cell phone, kept my fuel, and that way I could listen to an awesome playlist and also know that I was gonna be fueled throughout my entire race.
After you guys have worked up to your volume and your pacing, there's a couple things that are gonna be really important before race day. The shoe that you guys choose to wear is going to be really important. My suggestion is that you guys find something and do the bulk of your training in a shoe that you know that you like and is comfortable, doesn't give you blisters. Personally, as we get close to the race, I would suggest buying that same shoe again. You've likely put a ton of miles in it. I would wear the new pair of shoes for maybe 15 or 20 miles worth of running before the race to break that shoe in enough to where it feels comfortable, but not so much that you're going to be losing support. We've done a lot of tapering in a lot of different ways for CrossFit style competitions, and that is a very different style of tapering than it is for a long endurance type of run. For CrossFit, there's kind of 2 ways that most people tend to like to taper. That's either keeping a pretty hard training schedule up until a few days before competition and then completely dropping off and feeling fresh going in, or people drop off maybe 2 weeks before, take that downtime, and then start building back up to the volume in competition. We went from running almost every day with a medium run in the middle of the week and a long run at the end of the week to dropping volume substantially about a week and a half out, where we had a short to medium run once and then a little bit longer run at the end of the week, took a few days off completely, and then had one short 3-mile run maybe 2 days before the actual race. So you got to give your body the time to actually replenish itself, to replenish your carbs like Christy talked about. It's not just sore muscles that you're letting recover that take 2 or 3 days. You need to give your body the chance to completely heal and feel ready to go. Christy mentioned, or she talked about carbing up or making sure that we've got the glycogen stores days before. You can't also be depleting those at the same time. You've got to give your body the ability to store those so come race day, you're actually ready to use it and they're there for you guys to tap into.
I want to thank all of you for the support throughout this race and everything that we've been doing. It was so much fun to read all of the messages and comments that you sent. I have had a ton of people reach out and ask for my marathon plan. What did I do exactly? How did I run a new PR of 6 minutes? Because I just finished training for the CrossFit Games that took place in the first week of August, I didn't even decide to start really training for the marathon until about the second week of September. I only had about 6 weeks in there. So it was not the most structured. I was doing what I felt like I needed to be doing to feel good going into this race. So we are working on putting together a marathon running plan that can help you with CrossFit and running and help you kind of put those together, because this was an experiment and a challenge. So we wanted to be able to help all of you. So stay tuned for that. That will be coming out in the next couple months. And if you have any other questions or things you want to know about the race, what we did, definitely drop those down below in the comments. We'd love to answer them for you. And again, thank you so much for following our journey. We love sharing it with you. Have a great day.